We've all seen people who drive really nice fast cars and live in beautiful homes. Have you ever wondered, how do they get there? I'm Kevin Watson, and I love really nice cars. On this show, we dive into our guest stories of what they dreamed of having when they first started out and how they achieved their dreams over time.
This is the Kevin Watson Show.
Hey, Kevin Watson here. We've got some very special guests with us today, Paul and Joanne Kraft, very good friends of mine, and one of my best, referral sources, I would say. Funny enough, we'll talk about that story, but we're really excited to have him, both of them here today. They own Maplewood Realty and also some other ventures. They're investors as well, and Paul is a real estate and will and trust attorney as well for Tennessee and California. So welcome to the show.
Hey, y'all.
Thanks for having us.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Kevin.
And
Appreciate it.
Joanne, by the way, is a very successful author and has written several books. So what have you written, Joanne?
I wrote Just Too Busy, Taking Your Family on a Radical Sabbatical, and then I wrote The Mean Mom's Guide to Raising Great Kids.
I love that one.
It's not the gentle parenting crowd of today, but it's a good book.
I bet it is.
Yeah.
I bet it is.
It's
And
funny.
I've seen you speak before
Aw.
at our church when you were there, and it was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. So they are really a dynamic duo. It's really fun to work with them and see how they work together. It's really cool. And it is always entertaining. We have a good time.
Yes.
We have a good time.
We do.
But what I wanted them on this podcast for is really to talk about the dynamic that we saw in your business and how it changed over the last several years, especially after COVID or during COVID, I guess, and the trend that you're seeing about people moving to Tennessee, especially Middle Tennessee. And we wanted to talk about why is that happening? What are you seeing? Paul and Joanne are Californians that moved here to Tennessee, but have some Tennessee roots and origins. Paul, if you want to tell us about that in Maplewood Realty and how that came about, I'd love to hear about that as well.
Yeah.
So you want to start there?
Yeah, sure. So we were basically both born and raised in California, and predominantly Northern California. And about 14 years ago, we just kind of saw the trend that California was on, and our kids were, 3 of them were under 18, and we kind of looked at their future and saw that maybe that's not the place for them, and we were looking for some place that we could put down some better roots for them. And so we ended up relocating out here, and it's a much longer story, but we'd been out here about 3 or 4 years, and I'd never really been east of the Mississippi in America living anywhere. I'd always lived in California, and so we come out here, and I get an email from my dad after we've been out here for about 4 years, and he predominantly in the email talked about a relative of ours that moved to, was it Denmark or?
Some were out that way.
And moved to Denmark, and she was some big deal in Denmark. And
Her husband was a
big deal,
baron.
and she was married to him. And
Right.
so anyway, they're fairly well known in Denmark history. But in the email, he writes that her father was Major General Henry Ewing of the Confederate Army. And so I'm like, I've got Confederate roots. So I'm like, well, I'm not interested in genealogy, but Joanne is. So I told her about this email, and so she ran with it, and I'll let her fill in the details. But long story short, found out I'm actually a 7th generation Tennessean. So, but there's a whole lot to the story besides just that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool because moving to Tennessee, we never expected that. Paul's exactly right. I think we're 5th generation Californians, and I was born in Southern California, raised in the Bay Area. We have families spread out all over California, so we speak Californian. We understand Californians. We understand why they're leaving, and I will talk about that later. But so when we came here, it was like, I didn't feel like it was home yet. And my husband, it was like 5 seconds, and he was like, oh, this is home.
Yeah.
And it was a few years for me, and I'm like, still feels like home to you? And so when he gave me that information, that's when I kind of started looking things up, and come to find out, he's exactly right. Not only that, but we ended up moving, and at the time before we moved to Tennessee, this was before podcasts and YouTube channels and Facebook groups telling you all about Tennessee, we were flying pretty blindly. It was really a God thing, 100%.
I think it was.
And so we ended up moving a mile away from his uncle, where his uncle owned all the property across from the Carton. So his uncle owned the property across from the Harpeth, right? So the Harpeth runs in front of the Carton. he owned the property there across the street. They were friends of the McGavics, all the way to 96 past Hobby Lobby up that way.
Oh, wow.
And then his third great grandfather owned like 1,000 acres on Granny Pike. So any Maplewood schools or Ewing family, that's all his family. Oh, cool. And so the oldest documents, if you went to the State Museum, the archives, which I did, the oldest documents are written by his seventh great grandfather's hands.
Yes.
And that's such a God thing. Here we could have moved anywhere, and it felt like God went, no, we're going to take you back home.
Well, if you're familiar with Franklin, so the family name is actually Ewing. And so Ewingville Road, which is right across the street from Pinkerton Park, that's my family owned that land. So that's Ewingville,
the whole neighborhood there. And then
there's a street in downtown Nashville called Ewing. That's after my grandfathers, and 3 of my uncles were attorneys in Nashville. And so it's kind of fun to learn all that stuff after we'd been here. And like Joanne said, it just felt like God was pulling us in this direction.
Now,
that's what's really,
what's
the God thing right there, is you got here and then you found it out.
I'll say it's kind of annoying because like we trace his family back to and this is no lie, there's a book on his family where the folklore is his, I don't know who, grandmother, aunt, somebody, was the young girl who jumped off the Mayflower and swam to Plymouth Rock. Oh. And I'm like, seriously?
Oh, wow.
My family, gypsies, tramps, and thieves. Your family.
Yeah. So, it's the first person to touch American soil off the Mayflower was one of my ancestors. So y'all are welcome.
Wow. Thank you.
So annoys me.
Yeah. So,
I just learned you're a Finny, though.
What's that?
You're a Finny?
Newfoundland. Yes, yeah.
So that's
grew up in Newfoundland. Yeah, so I say we grew up in California predominantly because the Newfoundland story is not quite as interesting.
You did.
But that's where I grew up for a bit and moved to California, lived there, and then moved here to Tennessee. So
awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. So it's been a long, strange trip.
So we got here I would say 14 years ago.
And it's interesting, you're in real estate and you're talking about all this real estate that your forefathers owned.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we named our real estate company Maplewood Realty, because the oldest family estate, 3 Williams sisters married 3 Ewing brothers in Nashville, and the estate was Maplewood Estates.
Gotcha.
So that's why we carried the Maplewood in our brand. Whether it's our investment properties, we just carry it across the whole line.
I love that.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, we're investors. Like we have an Airbnb, and everything is labeled Maplewood something. Yeah. It's like we have an Airbnb in Columbia that's Maplewood Muletown, because Columbia is named Muletown. And so we carry that Maplewood name across multiple businesses.
Maplewood Hollow, so all the things.
So can you tell me more specifically what made you choose here in Tennessee? Like when you did y'all visit it first, or did you look at the demographics and say that's where we want to live, or what helped you choose here?
I'll let you lead that one.
Well, so you mentioned I grew up
being Franklin, Tennessee, or Brentwood, Tennessee,
Middle Tennessee area.
Right?
Middle Tennessee, yeah. Mm-hmm.
We so you mentioned I grew up in Newfoundland, which there's snow on the ground 9-10 months out of the year. So we realized we had to get out of California. We realized California is not really the future for us or for our kids. So I ruled out anything with snow. So I told Joanne, if I've got to own a snow shovel or a snow blower or snow tires, I don't want to live there. So that ruled out, like the Dakotas were popular at the time, ruled out anything in the Northeast. So then we're kind of left us with everything from Arizona out to Georgia and Florida. And we didn't really care for the landscape of Arizona and New Mexico. We even looked at Texas. Didn't really care for the topography of it, that kind of deserty type of look. Texas we loved, it lined up with a lot of things economically, politically, faith-based that we liked. But again, Texas just didn't quite draw us there. So on paper, we narrowed it down to Tennessee, Georgia, and the Carolinas. Mm-hmm. And so we actually took a trip and we flew into Atlanta, spent some time there. Didn't take very long to realize Atlanta wasn't for us. Drove up to Knoxville, really liked Knoxville. Yeah. Shows our ignorance coming from California. So SEC football, a big deal down here. Mm-hmm. We knew nothing about it. End up being in Knoxville opening weekend for UT.
Oh my
Had no clue. All of a sudden we wake up Saturday morning, the whole town's bright orange. And we're like, what's going on? Yeah. Really like Knoxville though, but kind of like, oh, maybe not. Came to Nashville and we're like, this fits everything we're looking for. That was the first time was 2010. 2010.
Okay.
And so again, lined up, politically, we liked the small government aspect of it. economically. We liked how they managed their economics. Obviously, Tennessee is the buckle of the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
So, from a faith standpoint, a lot of stuff there. And so we would meet every night, and talk about our day and what we liked. And we said, we're going to do it. Nashville, we're going to do it. And so this is 2010. We get on the plane. We're about over the Rocky Mountains. And we both look at each other and go, that's the dumbest idea we've ever had. We've never lived outside California. We know nobody in Tennessee. I can't even work in Tennessee yet because I got to get licensed. Right. That's the stupidest idea ever. We're not doing that. And so we go back home, and she remodels the kitchen and gets her dream kitchen in the house. And then, 2 years later?
No, that 9 months.
9 months
Your
later?
dad helped us do built-ins. The family got invested because they're all excited we're staying.
Yeah, but then you got invited back to speak. What was that, a year later?
My book, a MOPS event. And every year MOPS is somewhere different. And this year, the year that we happened to say no to God, he went, no, guess what? This year it's in Nashville. And so my literary agent basically said, hey, do you want to, go to the MOPS? I'm like, absolutely. Where is it this year? Nashville. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And who else was speaking there?
I don't know.
People. Max Lucado. If you're in the Christian world, Max Lucado got to meet Joanne. That was very exciting for him.
Please, he would remember none of that. But the thing that was pretty amazing for me, if you kind of look at the bigger picture of it, Tennessee, you say, why Tennessee? I'm married to this guy who pays incredible attention to politics. Like finite attention to it. And we loved our life where we were in California. We lived in a great area, loved it. We're outside of the Sierra Nevadas. I loved my job. I worked for a police department. He worked for, he had his law practice, but he also was teaching criminal law. We loved it. But he paid so much attention to what's happening in politics. He's very good at seeing where this is going. Mm-hmm. And so in the early 2000s, we invested in Texas. Mm-hmm. Now, this was 15, 20 years before everybody was talking about Texas. But he's like, hey, and when we did, we thought that would be it. But then I would say, it was a good 10 years before COVID. Yeah. We're moving to Tennessee, so people really thought we lost our minds. I don't think that's the case as much now. It's become such a part of the vernacular that people are saying, hey, where are you moving? And the world has gotten, with COVID, people can work remotely.
That's right.
So,
it's really accelerated that remote working.
There's FaceTime. We didn't have FaceTime. When you said goodbye to the grandparents, it was the phone call. Mm-hmm. So maybe Skype. It was a different time. That's how quick technology is going. Mm-hmm. So now you can go anywhere you want, really. Yeah. And like Paul said, the parameters he was really looking for, because we didn't want to move again. Mm-hmm. If we were moving, we figured, let's go on an adventure. Let's try this for a couple years. And I even told my family, hey, I may be back at Thanksgiving. And we left in June. Yeah. Like, save me a seat. This may be an unmitigated disaster. I do not have any idea what we're going to do. And I would say, I'm so happy we jumped.
Yeah.
I'm so happy.
Took that leap of faith,
yes,
right?
there's a story in the Bible about when Peter Peter falls asleep in the boat and Jesus walks on water and Peter comes out to him. I am so grateful we attempted to walk on water. Yeah. Because had we not taken that jump, and at one point Paul said to me, I would rather try and fail than not try at all.
Mm-hmm. And have the regret of not.
Then have the regret, right? And so,
one of our kind of life philosophies is at the end of your life, you will probably regret the things you didn't do more than things you did do. And it was one of those things where I'm like, I can't live in California the rest of my life and not have tried. So when we moved here, we had no place. So, for those of you listening or watching this, I mean, we had no place to live. So we stayed in a hotel for 9 days while we looked for a rental.
That was not good on our family.
That was tough.
It was rough.
I couldn't work here yet. So we had no job lined up for us. We knew
our jobs.
We knew nobody here. I mean, we didn't have somebody like us to listen to on a podcast and go, I've heard Kevin's podcast. Let me reach out to Kevin. All we had was us and God. That was it. And so.
And we tried.
Yeah, and we tried. And one of the best things about being a believer is it doesn't work out, I can blame God. You know what, God? this is on you now, right? You didn't make this happen.
That's right.
I trusted you. So you know what? I did my part.
Just shut the door. But no, I mean, it was definitely, we talk about our faith and how many times are we in church learning, listening, but guess what? your faith has to have feet at some point. And all the lessons you've learned are for practical reasons.
Paul says that, right? Faith without works
Is dead.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, granted, I can't say I was full of faith the whole time. I cried, I remember, at the railroad tracks in Franklin. The silliest reason I cried, because I thought, you know what? I'm stopped at this train and everybody's taking back roads somewhere. This is before Google Maps and everything. And I'm thinking, I don't belong here. And I just bawled at this stupid railroad tracks.
Well, but the other thing I would tell people, and one of the things we did is we said we're going to give it 2 years.
Yeah.
No matter how hard it gets, no matter how bad it gets, we're going to be here for 2 years. And if we have to, we'll suffer through it. And 2 years and a day, we'll go back to California if we have to. Because I didn't want us to cut and run at the first sign of trouble, the first sign of hardship, and we go, oh, this isn't it.
Right.
And, I'm happy we did, because it wasn't easy. There were definitely a lot of hard parts, but because we kind of set that parameter, it was like there's no other way but through. We essentially burned the boats for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I'll say that's the hard thing about, the great thing, let me say this first, the great thing about our clients is our clients find us. We have kind of a specialty that with knowing what they're going through, having that empathy, and also now having such a deep network that we try and be more than a real estate company. We try and have kind of partial ministry.
I can tell that. I can tell that distinction between you and all the other realtors that I work with is that when the transaction's done, you're not done with them.
No.
And they're just part of your family now, part of your community.
Yeah.
We were at a wine tasting thing the other day, and you invited me to that, and a lot of your past clients were there, and some new, and past clients, but y'all hold events like that all the time, and welcome them into the community. I think, obviously, you saw y'all were by yourself, and you saw, wow, it'd be great if I had some people that I could ask, hey, what doctor do I go to? Or, stuff like that.
And I'll say one of the things we try and do too is we don't, even though real estate is our jam, we know real estate and we love real estate. We think and Paul will say it's the best path to wealth.
Oh, yeah. Amen.
But
we talk about that.
As far as the ministry side, the serving the people side of it, we don't want our word to be the only one. We're incredibly biased now because now we're, it's kind of like being that person who lost 100 pounds.
Yeah.
And we're trying to tell the person, you can do it, you can do it, and they're like, I don't know. You're like, yes, you can. We try and get them in touch with, let's say somebody's looking for a house in Hendersonville or Franklin or whatever, or they're looking at a specific school. Well, don't take our word for it. We're going to get you in touch with those people, and we'll get that connection going so they can be the ones to tell them.
Right.
Because we want their move here to be completely transparent.
Yeah.
If you're coming, it's a big deal to come here. Have a good network.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that I love that about what you guys do with your clients is you get them connected right away. So they don't have to have that whole 2-year time period to establish a community. They already have a set community that they can choose to join, which is beautiful. So let's talk more about your client. So the ideal client that most of the time I see you guys working with, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, are people that are moving in from out of state, right? Mainly California, but I've seen other states, Texas, Illinois,
We're getting Minnesota, New Jersey, Florida.
So the big three, I just looked, and the big three states that people are moving to are Texas, Tennessee, and North Carolina, right? And then the people moving from are California, number one, New York and Illinois are in there. But no, actually, Texas was in there. It was in the top three. So Texas has changed. So I'm starting to see people come over here from Texas. The only difference, I love Texas. There's a lot of great things about Texas. It's very similar. It's like a sister state to Tennessee. The only biggest thing I see that's different is the property taxes are terrible. They're really high compared to Tennessee. Yeah. So sorry, Texas. I love you guys, but I like our taxes better.
Well, that's what kept us out of Texas. So Dran mentioned, we initially thought we were going to move to Texas, but one of the things that kept us out of there, so like people are familiar with California. California has what they call Prop 13, which is a kind of a restrictor on huge property tax increases. Tennessee, for the most part, taxes 25% of the assessed value, so that helps keep property taxes down. But Texas has no restrictor. So if you buy a house for $1 million today and next year your house gets reappraised at $2 million, your property taxes go up basically dollar for dollar. And there's no cap on that. So we've had some friends of ours, people who've moved to Texas and built these big, beautiful homes, and then had to sell because they couldn't afford the property tax increase. That's part of the reason we didn't go to Texas, was for that reason. So I think a lot of what you're seeing are people who are the property tax starting to catch up, and they're like, this is becoming unsustainable.
We invested in Texas, but we ended up not moving to Texas.
Okay.
And I'd be curious, when you're seeing people move here from Texas, we're having people move here from Idaho too. I'd be curious to know if they've been lifelong Texans, because I think they might be the leapfroggers.
One that moved, he said Texas isn't what it used to be.
Was he always like a born and raised?
Politically and everything, he moved here. He was in a bigger city, and he had a big ranch and moved here, and just said it's not what it used to be. That's the latest one that I've seen.
We've had people kind of hop skipping from their Californians or people from other states moving to Idaho, going, oh, I hate the weather, now we want to come.
And then moving, doing like a little jump.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you talked about investing just a little bit, and so I'd love to hear about that and how you got into investing, and what do you think about building wealth through real estate? We talked about that. We're all proponents of that, building wealth through real estate. So tell me how you got into that and sort of what it's done for you and how you would suggest people to get into it now, being that real estate has gotten so much more expensive than when we first bought those homes. And also, with interest rates and affordability now.
Yeah.
Well, let me lob this to you, because this was one of the questions we had on our little app. We have this little marriage app we do, and it said, how have we taught each other things? And I'm going to kind of lob this. So when Paul and I got together, we were in our mid-20s, and I had a house and he had a house. So that was kind of the launching off point for both of us. Little did I know that he paid a lot of attention to finances. What I'm the hare in the tortoise and the hare. He is the tortoise.
Right.
Incredibly. He is not a get-rich-quick guy, but he's a stick-to-the-plan guy.
Right.
And that plan has set us up for incredible success.
Yes.
And we haven't done everything correctly, but I'll lob to you kind of what your foresight was.
Yeah, where's the camera at? Is it this one here? There is no greater path to financial independence than real estate investing. And I will take that to the house against anybody that wants to take
Listen
it. So anyway.
It's true.
So I mentioned grew up in Newfoundland, very small fishing village there, and not knowing it at the time, but looking back now as an adult, we were dirt poor. And then we moved to California from Newfoundland. Again, we were dirt poor. And so as I got a little bit older, I decided I don't ever want that to be my situation. If I can avoid it, I want to do something about that. So I started to do some research into different opportunities. And to me, real estate just seemed to make the most sense. Yes, I could have gotten to the stock market, but there's so many different variables there, and you're giving control over to somebody else, right? So I had no control over Enron going bankrupt. Yeah. I have no control over a CEO getting indicted. I wake up the next morning, my stocks have gone down 50%. But with real estate, I had some semblance of control. And so I really like that idea. I like the idea that I can use smaller capital to smartly leverage into real estate. And so when I bought my first house, I actually house hacked. So I bought a 4-bedroom house, and I rented out 3 other rooms. And so I ended up cash flowing a little bit on that. And then when her and I got together, she was smarter, so she had the nicer house. So we moved into that house, but kept my house as a rental and just kind of kept, 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel, 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. Right. And so that was kind of our introduction into it. And, I remember telling her, she talked about the plan. I had this plan of, okay, if the math works, and the math always works, reality always bats last, then, at some point we're going to be at this particular station in life where I wanted to get to a point. To me, you're wealthy when you have time to do the things you want to do and you're not beholden to anybody else. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank, what kind of house, what kind of car you drive. Sorry, Kevin, not to offend the car people, but it's when you have the freedom to do the things that you want to do. Yeah. And so, I kind of put this plan in place. And to Joanne's credit, she was very patient, because as our lives went on, we watched other people around us doing these extravagant trips and buying these extravagant cars. And we lived through the 05, 06 mortgage run-up when people are using their houses as piggy banks. And I'm like, no, that's not the plan. And Joanne's like, okay, I see the plan. I see what we're doing here. Yeah. And so she is an excellent partner, through that, which is really important. And so we just kind of kept, building that up. And part of that is, having this source of income coming in that doesn't depend on Jen and I getting up and going to work. And so if you invest smartly, leverage smartly, then you can have, positive cash flow coming in. You get the equity, you get the tax benefits. And so to me, there's no greater path to financial independence in real estate.
Yeah. I call it mailbox money.
Yeah.
Right.
I do want to point out one thing to the people watching. If there is somebody watching that is thinking, oh, my credit's terrible, I'm in such a bad spot, I could never own. One thing we've learned with our clients, and I was this way too, every one of you are 100% wrong. You either think you can't get anything, because you don't know all the different mortgage products that are out there for first-time home buyers, for VA loans. You don't know. All you're doing is you're putting 20 to 30% down and 7% or whatever you're doing. You're doing this rudimentary math when there's so many other options. So you're either 100% wrong and you can get something, or you think you can get more and you need to wait a little bit. So that's why we really recommend talking to somebody like Kevin. Kevin with Churchill is such a good person to help you kick the tires, and now he's helping you set that plan.
Yeah.
But I say that to say this. There was a time when we got together, even though we both did have something, because I know our kids will give us pushback. You can't buy anything now. You can't. Well, yeah, you can. You just are going to have to. You're going to have to work, but you're not going to get You're not going to get what your parents have now.
Right.
You need to start where people start, and that's it. That's at a townhouse or a smaller, teeny tiny little house, or you start somewhere. Just start on the start line. But we couldn't even get a $500 refrigerator. That's how bad our credit was.
Yeah, at the time.
It was so bad. And
that was at Montgomery Ward, and they went out of business. So that's what you get.
So
that fridge could have saved their whole business.
So I don't want people to think, we were in a bad spot. He was keeping our debt on a yellow legal piece of paper, and I remember him saying, I'm like, when is our credit going to be good? And he's like, 2008 or something. We got married in 95 or something. And I remember thinking, or 2002, he's like, it'll take 7 years. I'm like, 7 years? And that was almost 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. So be patient.
And our first rental property really cash flowed maybe $100, $200 a month. Yeah. But it's just about, starting that process and getting involved. And you kind of touched on a little bit how there's never a perfect time to invest in real estate. No. I mean, you go back to the 70s, interest rates were 19, 20%.
Yeah.
You go back to 07, 08 when, money was easy, but then a lot of people got hurt. Mm-hmm. So it's about being smart about it. Yeah. There's never a bad time to get into real estate. Like you like to say, Kevin, it's not about timing the market, it's time in the market. If you would have bought a house at the height of 07, 08, at the very peak, 10 years later, you're just fine.
Yeah.
Would you be able to sell a year or two later? No. But it's like Trent said, it's not a get rich quick.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened to us. We built a home in West Haven in a real nice neighborhood here in Franklin. And we finished September 2006.
Oh my gosh.
The day before it.
And it went boom, dove for years. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just 12 months. It was years.
Yes.
And now it's worth over triple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's timing. It's not timing. It's time in the market.
One of the things that we do with our investments, and I know you're a proponent of this, we stress test it. So like before we buy anything, investment wise, we'll say to ourselves, okay, what if the market tanks like 07, 08? What if rents drop 50%? You don't be ridiculous. The rents are never going to go to zero.
Right.
What if you have a vacancy for 2 months instead of just one?
Yeah.
Right.
Do you have the ability to weather that? And that's where having important advisors like you that can kind of help you stress test this and say, okay, but here's what your appreciation is going to be. Here's what your debt pay down is going to be. Here's depreciation. Here's all these other benefits that come with that, so that you don't find yourself trapped. Because, man, there's nothing worse than owning a house that's upside down.
Yeah. And that's a good point to all of you that want to be investors. We've got a great team here. We all own properties and have successfully gained a bunch of equity and wealth through that. Mm-hmm. But one of the things is to have an emergency plan, right? So if it's, I'd prefer cash, 3 to 6 months of cash for what it would take to run your business, your real estate business. Mm-hmm. But if you don't do that, at least have an equity line of credit on your primary residence that's free and clear that you can go to if you needed it in those times where you're in between renters and the AC goes out and you need a new roof.
Yeah.
What do? Have a plan, a contingency plan like that, because I think that's what fails most businesses is just lack of cash flow at some point
Mm-hmm.
in their life. And I know we could all probably point to those times where we're like, how are we going to make this happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the other thing I would say too, if you're looking at getting into investing, it's referred to as passive, but it's not really passive. If you're doing it right, it's a business you're running.
Yeah.
It's much easier to run than a full-time 40-hour-a-week business where all the work is dependent on you. Like if you're running an AC service company and you're doing all the service calls out in the field, then if you don't go out to the field, then that business suffers. Real estate's a little bit easier than that. I like to say, remember, your tenants are your customers. So treat them like customers.
That's right.
Treat them like somebody that's a valued customer of your business because they're paying your rent. And I like your point about having an emergency fund with some type of, but have somebody else you can call. So call, hey, Kevin, I'm thinking about tapping into my home equity line for this.
Yeah.
And let somebody else tell you no.
Yeah.
Don't tap into that because you don't want to find yourself in a debt snowball.
Yes.
And you can't get out from underneath it. So have somebody else you can call before you tap into that emergency
Yes.
fund and say, is this truly an emergency?
Right.
Get some trusted advisors.
Wise
Nobody
counsel.
does it alone.
Amen to that. Having a team of trusted advisors in just about every realm, from attorneys to realtors to CPAs to, a good banker that can help you with an equity line of credit, a good lender, because they may know things that you know, or they may know tax-wise how that would impact you if you did that may impact you way later down the road, So it's really important to have a team. We entered the same way. I got married to Holly. She had a house, and I had a condo up in Green Hills. Kept the condo, rented it out, and that's how we kind of started. But investors,
go ahead. In terms of building a team too, one of the tendencies that we see new investors kind of get into is looking for the cheapest, right? And there's a value to having somebody on your team and paying for that value. So I'm sure you can find an AC person that will do a cheaper job. But what's it going to cost you in the long run? And if you can establish a good relationship, then if you need them, they're going to be there for you. Likewise, mortgages. You can shop around and maybe you can find a better rate or better closing costs, but where's that person going to be 5 years from now when you need another mortgage?
Yeah.
Or you have a quick question, are they there for you? So people that are charging the cheapest, they're kind of telling you what they think their value is to you.
Yeah.
And so keep that in mind.
Here's a good example. In 2021, there were over 500,000 loan officers. They were licensed. Now there are 73,000 loan officers.
Yeah.
So one of those loan officers is probably just not even in the business if you called them back.
Yeah.
Most of them, right? And the ones that I believe are the ones that we're adding value and we're actually taking care of people.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what makes our business a little different from most kind of, I would say, the average I don't want to say Keller Williams or what, you know what I'm saying, that kind of Coldwell bankers, all the people you think of when you think of big real estate companies. What makes ours a little different is that we could be working with clients for 2 years. Because part of that is the wise counsel.
Yeah.
Part of it is phone calls 2 years before they come.
It's true because I hear it. Because sometimes they'll call me and say, "Hey, Joanne and Paul told me to call you," and I'll talk to them. And I'll say, "Okay, let's talk. Let's go through the checklist of some things you need. So, do you have a job here?" And they go, "No." have you sold your house in California? No.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, well, those are some things that we need to tackle before. So let's see, let's talk about what would that look like once those things are in place. So I don't stop there and say, call me when you get a job.
No.
Call me when you sell your home. We go ahead and make a plan.
Yeah.
So they have a vision of what it's going to look like.
Yep.
Most lenders would say, I'm too busy. Call me when that happens and we'll look at everything. So I say, what do you think? I do this all the time. What do you think in your profession you can get a job making here? Let's base it on that income. This is hypothetical, but let's base it on that income and let's see what you could do. That way you can just play online and see what's out there and start getting used to communities and areas. And I think that really helps them
It does.
to get that vision.
It does, and we appreciate you doing that with them. The hard thing I would say for people out of state, especially the West Coast, coming to Tennessee, if I could say there's a little bit of a I don't want to say
Salary shock?
Well, not just that. No, because it's not what you make, it's what you keep here, and we tell our clients
That's
that.
true.
But no, what we find is Tennesseans, the The West Coast is a little bit more cynical. And so they're afraid to call because I think they're afraid that there's going to be like this hard sell of, and I try and educate our clients before they even get to Paul with the contract side of things that, we actually want to give you the information because, wise counsel makes for wise decisions. And we'll tell our clients, even if they come out and meet us for coffee or that we're investing in you as well because whether you come out in 6 months, 3 years, or maybe you just refer your aunt to us. We want you to have a spot where you trust some people that you can start making those steps forward because it's very hard to do when you're from 1,500 miles away, 2,000 miles away. And so that I find that they're a little bit more cynical, but if I can just get them to trust us, then they trust that we don't hound them on the phone. We don't send them flyers. We don't do any of that. We're pretty hands off. Unless they really tell us they want more attention.
Right.
And part of that is you're talking to them is a big deal.
Yeah. Well, I think all of the table here share the same philosophy. We want our clients to be successful. At the end of the day, that's really what we're about.
Yeah.
I want our clients to find their dream home. And then we have several clients that come out and they visit here and they visit Chattanooga. And they're like, I really like the Chattanooga area. Okay, well, we've established partnerships with realtors in Chattanooga that we trust, that we work with, that know our clients' needs. And so we've established that because ultimately I don't really, care necessarily where you go. I want you to go and be successful there.
Yeah.
And if that takes, like Joanne said, 2 to 3 years, that's fine. One of the things we like to say is it can be kind of discouraging to talk to you and have you go, well, you're not ready to buy a house. It's going to be 2 to 3 years. Well, you know what? 2 to 3 years is going to go by whether you do something or not. So
That's
why
right.
not follow Kevin's plan and get yourself in a spot where 2 to 3 years you're owning a house.
Right.
Rather than 2 to 3 years from now, you're still in the same spot and you're looking at another 2 to 3 years.
And you really we have kind of both sides of clients. You have the one that gets told 2 years and they come out and they're like, 6 months. I'm going to make this work because there's no job beneath me and I will make it work. And they do.
They do.
But then you have the other half of the clients that they're kind of self-sabotaging. They want to, we like to say activity with no productivity or analysis paralysis. You're kicking the tires. And we've had clients like this. And it is kind of sad to see because they were all in and then something really minor. And that's it. They're going to give up. And it's like, oh man, what you're going back to, that isn't changing for your kids back there. All the reasons you gave that you're leaving, that's just getting worse. And I'm sad you didn't stick with it here. That makes me sad.
Yeah.
And for those,
they're just delaying the inevitable, probably.
It's gonna. It's rough.
Well, and then everything else here will be more.
Yeah.
Well, and then for the people that are listening or watching, and you've got young kids. That's a lot of our clients deal with. That's what we had. And you think, well, geez, is it going to work out for my kids? Well, all 4 of our kids are here now. So when we first moved out here, our oldest wanted to stay in Southern California. She came out 6 months later.
3 months later.
3 months later. Our other 3 kids are all living here. 3 of our kids own their own houses. Our youngest at 25 bought his first house. Kevin's done the mortgage for all of them. That's how much we trust Kevin as we send him our kids, right? And so... And they did that on their own. I mean, mom and dad didn't give them money to do that because, we want their success to be their success. And so they've all done that. And they were able to do it because of decisions that we made where we looked down the road and said, okay, this isn't a great option for you. This is, and we're willing to put the work in to make that happen for you as best we can.
And all of our kids, hopefully we taught them, not everybody can live in Brentwood or Franklin.
Right.
Not everybody wants to anyway, but not everybody can. But guess what? There's so many other spots.
There's so many great
that are
places.
amazing out here.
Well, and that's a big message that we want to get across, not only to people moving into the area, but for first-time buyers.
Yes.
Just what you were saying earlier, you're not going to move out of your parents' house and move into that same house as your house.
Right.
It took your parents years of stepping up in home and equity to get to that point, right?
And parents don't do it. Let them do it. Do not bring them in. Let them.
Yeah. And so it takes time to get there. And so you may have to live a little further out. Right? We're seeing Lewisburg is a great option. There's so many great
Parts
little
of
towns that are beautiful and quaint and great, and you can get a great home there, and it's got great schools, and so.
Or you start out in a townhouse. I mean, we just helped.
Yes.
You did the mortgage. We helped him buy it. Bought his first townhouse.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's down in Spring Hill. It's a great town.
Great location.
Great location for this
It is.
townhouse. And he's now in the market. So he's no longer paying somebody else's mortgage. He's paying his mortgage. He's building his equity.
I use it, the analogy, not that I've ever surfed, but like surfing. Like at first, for a first-time buyer, you're paddling hard on that surfboard to get on the wave and catch the wave. And the wave is the equity, the build of the equity. Once you're on, though, you get to ride that equity as long as you're in the market.
Right.
If you ever get back off, though, guess what you got to do again? You got to paddle to get back on.
Yeah.
So being in the market gives you that equity momentum, and then you just take that and build it to the next.
Yeah.
And the power of leveraging. Right, the power of
Smartly leveraging.
Yeah, we call it an asset leverage. So you're taking a small asset. Let's say that you're putting $20,000 into buying a home. We did that. We put $20,000 into buying a home in Franklin, Tennessee, in 2013, and we bought a home for about $345. Right, beautiful home. We still own that. And so here we are, 2026, 13 years later, that home is worth $850, right?
Yep.
And we make about $2,500 a month cash flow off of that $20,000 that we put in. So the return on investment is infinite. You can do the little infinite sign. It's immense. It's like, I wish I would have done 10 of those then.
I know.
Well, and that's the passive part of the real estate, because, I mean, for the most part, all you did to earn that equity was just get in the market.
That's all I
the
did.
market took care of everything else. I mean, you maintain the property and you take care of it, make sure it's up to snuff. But there's nothing else you could have done with your time to generate that kind of revenue over that period of time.
There's no way.
The per hour rate you're making is outrageous.
There's no way.
Again, that's why I say there's no greater path to financial independence in real estate.
I agree.
It's
You
been
can't
the best.
borrow money to buy stock, right? Now, wealthy people can, but most people, like common people, can't borrow money to buy an asset, where you can borrow money to buy an asset. In fact, we have 0 down programs for first-time buyers if you qualify, that you can actually walk in. I think we did that for that gentleman, and hardly bring anything to the closing. Y'all can negotiate the seller to pay the closing costs. We can do the 0 down financing, and they walk into an asset, $260,000 asset, and they don't bring anything, and they instantly start building wealth.
That's so exciting. We have some clients that actually do get it, and it's very exciting to see. We had one close just yesterday, and he gets it. And he will look, and he just found a very good investment property, and we were like so excited for him.
Well, and it gets
seeing what he's
addictive,
doing.
because,
is.
like I mentioned, we were at the closing table yesterday, and we finished signing the papers, and he looks at me and goes, "I'm already looking for the next one."
Nice,
You know,
nice.
So he's a smart guy, and he understands that. But he also, again, leverages smartly. That's one of the things, man, I really want to stress. That's why it's important to work with somebody like you. Because, man, leverage works both ways in brutal ways. And if you over leverage or leverage inappropriately,
True.
man, you're on a hamster wheel. You're not going to get off.
If I could say if I could brag about something that we've done, it's even more than the business, even more than the blessing that it's been. It would be that we kept our investment properties when the market tanked in the 06, 07 time. Because we actually had properties in California, and we were having so many dear friends losing their primary homes because they were using, like Paul said. So if I could say, we are we want our clients to be conservatively wise. They ultimately, it's their decision. But we will give it to them straight. Here's what we would do. This is your property. Do what you want.
And there are some loans out there that, if used wisely, it's called a DSCR loan for investors. If used wisely, it is a fantastic tool.
Yes.
But if used unwisely, can get you in a lot of trouble real fast.
And you have to,
and so you have to make sure you've got the right team that's advising you correctly, or you could dig a big hole.
That's right. Or you lose it all.
And you want people that are going to be honest with you and tell you no. We've had clients who've come to us and said, "Hey, Paul, we want to sell our house," and John and I have said no. No, don't. This is not the right time to sell. Now, did we lose a commission based on that? Yeah, we did. But again, I'm more about the client's success. And
that's good. No, that's a great story, because we've said no to a lot of sales.
And so, like she mentioned, two of the properties we bought in 05, right before the market essentially melted down. And I remember at the time, the mortgage broker we were working with, this when we were in California, so we didn't know you, the mortgage broker we were working with, this is when they had those liar loans. And so I'm filling out the application, and he says, how much do you make? And I was an attorney at the time, and I told him, and he goes, you can put down whatever number you want. You're an attorney. You can say you make $500,000 a year. Nobody's going to question it. I'm like, but I don't make $500,000 a year.
Nice.
Yeah.
He goes, well, it doesn't matter. And I'm like, actually it does.
Yeah.
So again, don't sacrifice your integrity at the altar of, pursuing something. Trust your advisors, find good people that are going to keep you out of trouble and tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly about whatever loan product it is. Every loan product carries risk.
Yeah.
You want an advisor who's going to tell you the risks as well as the rewards.
The other thing is, and I will say, investing is not for everybody.
No.
We have some people that we love dearly that have wanted to invest, and he just does not have. He's probably one of the. No, it would drive you insane if. He would go insane because he just would be so stressed out about, did they not mow the lawn? Did they not?
Yeah.
We really try and educate our investor clients, especially the first-time investors.
That's true.
Because a lot of our clients will move on to investing,
Yeah.
and we'll say, hey, listen, and we met with some numerous times saying, you've got to consider it. It's got to be a hands-off proposition as much as you can.
Well, and you have to create it. You have to make sure that you treat it like a business.
Yep.
You have your own account for it. You take all the revenue in from it, and you pay all your bills from it, and you keep that in there until you have a good 3 to 6 month cash reserve.
Yep.
And you're going to need all that.
Well, that's
you're
where
going to
he
need all
was
of
way
it.
better at that in the beginning. When we first started, I was way worse because I'm like, okay, we're going to take these units and I'm going to plant daffodils. And at the time, color red was a big deal. I'm going to paint the doors red, and then they're not paying their rent, and I'm going to the door now. We're on this plan, and they've got better phones than I have. They've got their nails done, and I'm like, what? Why are my tenants not paying?
That's the hard part. That's the hard part. My wife and I talked about this and talk about this often, is if you're going to get into investing into real estate, some of your assets are going to go into continuing to maintain and invest in that real estate. And you're going to sort of have to give that to the business and sacrifice a little bit of your own. Like you said, you're not going to have the nice cars and houses until later.
Yeah, right.
Until later.
Follow the
then
plan.
you can do that because you've done what you needed to do, right?
Yeah.
But you're going to sacrifice. And it's like a business. When do most businesses start showing a profit? After 3 to 5 years, if they ever do, right?
Sure.
Sometimes people look at real estate investing and they're like, oh, it's not cash flowing, I'm not going to do it. That may not be the answer, right?
Yeah.
It may be the answer, but it may not be the answer because it may just take time. I bought an investment property in Spring Hill in 2007, and my rate was 7%, right? So it was high at that time, but it was investment property. And then a couple of years later, rates went down to 4, and I refinanced it to 4. My cash flow went up by like $500-$600 a month.
That's so nice.
At the time, I was about breaking even every month, and then I went to cash flowing. So over time, you have opportunities to refinance those and renegotiate that debt back down to a better payment, and it gives you more cash flow as well.
Yep.
Well, and if you look at, again, kind of worst case scenario, so I mean, you got into it at 7%. The first home I bought was a 9% mortgage with, I think, an 11.5% second behind it. But they were fixed. So I knew my worst case scenario for 30 years was going to be that payment.
That's right.
So it only got better.
That's
That was the only option. It could only get better.
And average rent goes up about 3% a year.
Right.
Right?
And so rates came down. Now we no longer own that house, but we were able to refinance our rates, and you got us into mortgage. I think most of our mortgages are sub 5% right now.
Yeah.
Because we waited, and at one point they were 7 and 8. And when the opportunity was right, one of the things I love about you is we'll call you up and say, look, we're looking at refinancing. You'll go, now's not the time.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. And that's part of having, you didn't make any money off of telling us no.
Yeah.
But that's part of the value we get from you is, I know I can call you up and say, Kevin, what do you think? And there's times you go, yep, let's do it. And other times you go, no, not the time.
Yeah.
And that's the value that you bring that I don't really need to shop around for.
That's the hardest part with clients, I will say, because we have incredible clients. I mean, if people are worried about, of course, I'm married to an attorney too, so I can't give 100%. Don't stress. But with just the robust economy here in Tennessee, I feel so good about planting my investment garden here.
Yeah.
But our clients, the hard thing is the ones that will say things or they don't listen, and they'll ask our advice, and then they'll say things like, well, the price is real inflated right now. And I'm thinking, guess what? That person's sitting on that house for 60 days and they don't care. They're getting it eventually. So they're saying things like they think they know, and I have to bite my tongue because I'm like, you're about to lose the house because you think you're gonna, or they think they're gonna get this perfect. That there's also sometimes unrealistic ideas as to what they can get here, and there has to be a little bit of a reality check. And everybody seems to want an acre. And then I'll usually say, well, how big are you on now? Well, how big's your lot? Oh, I'm on a 8,000 square foot lot. I'm like, okay, do you like gardening? No. Right. I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. You're watching too many chicken coops on Instagram. Let's kind of have this conversation. Let's see what your money can do. And usually I will send them very high above what they're looking at just so they can educate themselves on the areas. And then they're the ones that say, okay, I'm going to stay at this price point. Right. And then we drop the price and go, okay, when you come out, let's look just at this. And that's usually how you kind of have to educate them. But they think they know. And it's like, you're going to learn something different.
I think people get stuck on a interest rate saying, oh, rates are high. And what I try to tell them is, it is not your 30-year rate. It's your temporary rate until rates go down, and then we redo the loan.
That's right.
Right? It's not a 30-year rate. It's your 5-year at the most rate, right? Most of the time within that 5-year period, there'll be a dip. And sometimes it's only one day. Sometimes it's only a couple of days. But I watch that, and we have a software that actually will ping you and say, guess what? It's time.
Oh, that's great.
And so it's not ever going to be your 30-year rate. Most people don't stay in that home for 30 years, right? Or if they do stay in the home, they don't stay in that loan for 30 years, right? They're going to do something else. And so I think it's getting that in their head and realizing, okay, this is my opportunity to get into an asset right now and be able to build wealth through that.
Well, that's why a lot of people are handcuffed right now to their low interest rates. And that's why when clients come in, they're like, well, this has been on the market 90 days. I'm thinking, well, they're probably on a 4% loan. And they don't care.
That's right.
They're going to sit on it because they really don't want to leave it anyway. And
in talking about investments too, if you're looking at getting into real estate investment, the important thing, like we've talked about, is getting into it. And a lot of people get too focused on the interest rate or the cost to get into it or those types of things. But like you mentioned, let's assume you get into a mortgage that's at 7%. And rates never go down. They stay at 7%. Well, you know what, 10 years from now, you can still refinance that 7% mortgage, re-amortize it out, drop your monthly payment down.
That's right.
You've increased your cash flow.
That's right.
In that time period, rents have gone up. And so, your interest rate's still 7%. And yes, people go, oh, well, gee, now I've got another 30. I'm going to pay so much more in interest. Well, who cares? You're getting the appreciation. The interest is tax deductible. It offsets your rental income. You're getting the depreciation. Stop focusing on all these extraneous
even though
numbers.
I say real estate is the best wealth building tool, equity is not a good wealth building tool. So if you're leaving it in your house not doing anything, it's not making you any money.
That's the hardest
house is
thing to
going to grow. The house is going to grow no matter what you owe on it. And it's difficult because we've been drilled in our head, pay off your debt. Don't be in debt. And there are important parts to that. There are important parts cash flow
Dave Ramsey, don't watch this part. Please don't watch this. We will be
I'll talk to
never
Dave
hired,
about that,
Dave.
But that's the part where I diverge from that is let that equity build for you and grow for you. If I had not done that, I wouldn't be where I am now. Right. But the most important emphasis you said, Paul, was smartly and wisely with counsel, because you can get in big trouble.
Absolutely. Well, we saw that in the mortgage meltdown.
I was going to say, one thing that helps us as a team, we definitely are two halves to it. There are some excellent agents out there. There just are that have the whole shebang. Him and I are one half of a whole because he's very good with the non-emotion contractual side. And every couple years, I'll go, okay, we need to pay off all of our properties, everything. And he's like, why? Why? And I'm like, no, listen, let me tell you why. This is why we got to pay off everything. And then he's like, and then he'll, in non-emotion, just black and white. He's
show
the
you
Old
the numbers.
Testament, I'm the New Testament. And he'll be like, okay, let me explain to you. Now, if we take this money that's in here and make babies with it, if we make it have a baby over here, now we've multiplied it smartly with wise counsel. And so how often, we're about due to have another conversation.
Everyone's
We're like, I'm done. We got to just,
But again, she's, you have to be open to hearing it, and she's very open to listening. And then she goes, okay, yeah, I see that this is where we're at. But, I mean, it just comes down to having wise counsel. To me, money is like alcohol. Some people have no issue with alcohol. They can go out and have a social drink.
That's right.
They enjoy it. It's not a problem for them. Other people should not be around it at all. They can't handle it. Money is the same way. There are some people who money doesn't affect them. Other people, $1 comes in and $1.50 goes out.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why they're... You need to honestly evaluate yourself as to whether or not you're the type of person that can manage that debt responsibly.
Right. Yeah. That's right.
And be able to do that. And then one of the things you kind of glossed over very quickly is the DSCR loans.
Yeah.
If you're looking at getting into investment, people give DSCR loans a bad rap because they are expensive.
And that's the hard money loans for
They're
people that don't
traditionally
know
hard money
Yeah.
loans.
Traditionally.
It's basically like a commercial loan.
But they're more expensive to get into. The rates are higher. But we have several DSCR loans because it got us into the house we couldn't otherwise have gotten into.
Oh, yeah.
Now, did I pay more for it? Yeah. But am I going to make more in the end? Yeah. If I didn't do the DSCR, I'm getting $0.
That's right.
And zero appreciation.
You have no babies.
But
You have no
these
babies.
are
being-
DSCR loans, though, that are fixed for 30 years with an excellent
That was-
Yeah.
that was-
rate.
Yeah, we've got
so
some.
it's not, it doesn't have the connotation that you think. That's why you need to have the
They've
conversation.
gotten a lot more competitive.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And you know what I love that's happening right now is as Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac get more conservative and more conservative, more and more lenders are coming out saying, "I'll do that.
Yeah.
Oh, they are?
I'll do that. I'll do that."
Capitalism.
I just did one. That we're closing in a week or two. That Fannie and Freddie said no. The guy's making like millions a year in a business. Been in business over 30 years.
Wow.
They said, "Oh, there's a little bit of decline of income, so we don't like this." and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe we got this far." I looked at a bank statement loan, 12 months of bank statements, not 2 years, no tax returns, nothing. Same rate. I just switched to the bank statement and said,
There you
"Bye,
go.
Fannie.
Right.
Bye, Freddie." Already approved.
Yeah.
Wow.
Going to closing.
Yeah.
And so the lenders are going, "Hey, I'm going to take that risk because that's good risk."
That's right.
And Fannie and Freddie are going, our mandate is primary borrowers. That's all we want to do. And we want to do this well. And they don't really try to help our self-employed borrowers. And now everyone is self-employed at some point. Everyone's got a side gig going.
course.
So that makes you
Yeah.
self-employed now.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you want to use that income, good luck with them.
Yeah.
We have other alternatives, which I am really excited about.
Well, that's why
Being
it's so
able to do
important. And this is why we're one of your biggest fans, because you want to work with a mechanic that's got a number of tools in the toolbox,
Yeah.
right? Because if you're a hammer, every problem's a nail,
That's right.
right? And so if you are self-employed and you aren't a first-time home buyer and
Yeah.
you own maybe 6 or 7 rounds, you're looking to grow your portfolio, if you go to your more traditional lender, they go, "I can't help you."
Yeah.
But if you got somebody like you that's got a bunch of different tools, say, "You know what, the hammer's not going to work, but hey, look at this pair of pliers will do the job."
Yeah.
And so you have a number of different products, which is why
And-
you're our go-to lender.
Yeah,
for
and
that reason.
if we don't do it the best with excellence, then I will refer them to someone who does.
Right.
Right. There's many times where someone is buying a home and they're going to sell their big home and they're going to pay cash for this home as soon as they sell the big home, but they want to buy this home first. Right. And I'm like, you don't need a mortgage.
Right.
What you need is an equity line of credit on that home. You buy the home with that. When you sell this home, equity line of credit's paid off. Now you're where you wanted to be, right? That's called a bridge loan, and the bank will happily charge you a lot of money to do that, and you don't need to do that, right? So I had one person say, "You are the worst salesman ever," and he was joking,
Right.
but they were like, "Thank you so much for just telling me the truth. I want to get
trust.
to the bottom of why y'all do that and why I do that, and we all agree that Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior, and I think that's where the root of our purpose and meaning comes from, and I'd like for y'all to tell me a little bit about that journey."
For me, I was raised in a very traditional church growing up, and I just really went because the boys were cute on Friday nights. And then,
Good prospect.
yeah. And then, through some very bad decisions on my part in my early 20s, I just really came to Jesus moment where I just realized this life was not about me anymore. And there were some very hard things happening in my life, including my mom dying of cancer and just all kinds of awful things. And it really caused me to go, wow. And so my girlfriend at the police department at the time, I was a 911 dispatcher, she drugged me to church with her and put a pink Bible in my hands. And I thought, what the heck is this? What kind of craziness? But I had nothing else going on. And so I went there and I remember the pastor talking and I just thought, what in the world? He's making so much sense. And then, of course, the tears started, and I'm like, what is happening right now? And that was almost 30 years ago, and him and I, we were pretty much heathens when we met, and then God kind of got a hold of me first, and then about 6 months later, you came along.
Yeah. I mean, for me, so I hope my parents aren't listening to this podcast. I was basically raised by wolves. So I had a lot of freedom growing up to do kind of whatever I wanted to do. And fortunately, my personality, John will attest to this, I tend to be pretty controlling. So
while kids would say that.
Yeah. So while I grew up in an environment that was very heavy alcohol and drugs, I never got into that. Not because I'm superior. I just didn't like the feeling or the idea of being out of control. I didn't like the feeling that I was no longer in control of what I was doing or conscious of what I was doing. So I'm like, I'm not interested in that. So fortunately, I stayed away from that. For me, growing up, religion was, we didn't have a Bible in our house. We weren't hostile to it, but it also wasn't anything we ever talked about either. And so to me, like, Jesus was an historical figure. I'm familiar with him, but I knew nothing about being born again or, any of those types of things. And I'd always kind of believed there was a God, but this kind of weird, well, there's got to be something bigger out there. And her and I got together, and she has more of a biblical background. And so we'd talk about it. And I'd ask her, I said, why do you think the Bible is true? And we'd have these conversations.
And I had no good answer.
Yeah.
And I was the one that's supposed to have an answer.
I wasn't going to say that, but.
No, I don't mind.
But so I, Dran gets emotional about it. You were getting emotional about it. I'm not the emotional one.
Right.
I have almost no emotion, Dran would say. So for me, it was very much a logical thing. And anytime I'm talking to anybody about their faith or that, talking to them about the Bible or whatever it is, people have all these objections. Oh, well, the Old Testament contains all these errors, or, how could God do this, or how could God do that? And the question I come back to is, okay, ignore all that. What do you do with Jesus? Yeah. What do you do with him? Forget everything else. Do you believe that he actually existed? Yeah. Okay, so you believe there was a guy named Jesus that walked the earth. Do you believe that he did the things that he said? And I kind of go back to C.S. Lewis. Jesus is either a liar, a lunatic, or Lord. Those are the only options. Yeah. So you can't call him a great philosopher if you don't believe he was Lord, because otherwise he lied and he was a lunatic. Right. And so for me, it was just very much this, okay, so I did my research and through church and Bible studies at home, and I realized, okay, Jesus is the Son of God, so I either better live accordingly, like if that's the truth, I better live that truth, otherwise I'm deceiving myself and everybody else. Yeah. And so for me, that was my kind of salvation story, and I'm very much a believer that something that important, so we were going to a church at the time, and it was their 7th anniversary party, and we were at a big function, and the pastor did an altar call, and I thought, we stand up in public for weddings, we stand up in public for graduations, but yet a lot of churches, and it drives me crazy when the pastor does this, okay, everybody bow your head and close your eyes. I hate that. Yeah, if you've accepted Jesus, raise your hands. Just nobody else knows. I'm like, what a shameful way to enter. Yeah. Here, Christ died publicly on the cross, and you can't even stand up in church, which that's the most friendly environment you're ever going to be in when it comes to your faith. That's true. And the pastors make you a coward? That drives me absolutely insane. Me too. So I made a public declaration of faith at that time. That was April 97.
My mom had just passed. We were going to her service after that. But no, I think it's been the biggest game changer of our life. No, for sure. Amen. And we don't, there is nothing that has been more important. We could talk real estate all day long till we're blue in the face, but nothing has touched our lives, has changed our lives more than who we love the most. Yeah. And again, our clients, most of them know, I would say, if they really kind of dig kind of deep in my Instagram and our business. We don't push it on people, but I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that their salvation is the most important thing,
Yeah.
more than even a house.
Yeah.
And so we do try and love them well, even if we're praying behind their backs.
I think it's Francis Assisi said, go out and preach the word. And sometimes if you have to, use words.
Yeah.
And so I think you guys are a great example of doing that.
Yeah.
Just by the way you love those people and take good care of them. Here I am getting emotional again.
We
Well, we
try.
talked, and,
But
you know,
I think people easily see it in you guys.
I hope.
I hope so. Well, and we've talked, for however long we've been talking here about accumulating wealth and real estate and, financial independence. But if you're just acquiring wealth for the sake of acquiring wealth and to be able to acquire
What's the
things, you know what, 100 years from now, you're not going to own any of it.
Right.
And so if you're just doing it, that's kind of a very hollow existence. And that's why
Yeah.
you see so many rich people that seem to have everything that get divorced, that are miserable, drug addicts, whatever it is, because they're trying to fill it with something they can't fill with other than, in my opinion, other than Jesus. That's the only thing you can fill that with.
I think I've heard only thing money does is amplify who you are.
100%.
Right?
We say that all
So-
the time.
If
So
you're
wealth
if you're a
accumulation-
giver, it just makes you a
That's
bigger
right.
giver.
Yeah.
That's
You know,
right.
if you're a miser, it just makes you
That's
a
right.
worse miser.
Right.
You know.
That's right.
And so one of the things that we love about what we've been able to do is there's a number of missionaries that we're able to support
Mm-hmm.
that maybe couldn't go out because I'm not the best evangelist, right?
Yeah.
That's not,
Yeah.
but there are people who are.
Yeah.
And so I can take what we've accumulated and we can now give to that person so
That's
they can
right.
go do what God has gifted them
That's
to
right.
do that they may not have otherwise been able to do so. And that's
I love
far
that.
more important than, sorry, Kevin, far more important than cars or jet skis.
Oh, yeah.
I know
Amen.
you agree with that. I'm
No,
being a little bit
amen.
funny about it, but
Vacations, lake houses, beach
I
yeah,
agree.
houses.
that's if you're not accumulating wealth for the benefit of other people,
Yeah.
then I personally I just think that's kind of a hollow existence.
No, I agree. There, our pastor had such a great sermon one time. I've never forgotten it. He talks about the Dead Sea. So the Dead Sea has no outlet, and it's very salty. That's why everything in it is dead. And Jesus says we are the salt of the earth, right? And so we don't want to lose our saltiness, right? And so a healthy pond or river has outlets. And so we are to be that outlet. So if we hold our money like this, we're dead.
Yeah.
If we give it, then we're the outlet for
Yeah.
God to work through us,
Yep.
right? Which I fully believe.
Well, the other thing
And
is this: if you're doing this, you know what? Nothing gets out, but nothing gets
nothing
in
comes
either.
in either. Yeah.
Right, and so
That's
you're a
right.
very closed universe here.
Yeah.
You do this, and you leave room for things to go out, but you also leave room for things to come in
Yeah.
as well.
It's a beautiful
And
way to
so-
live.
I think it's even Paul who said, the Apostle Paul said, I've had much and I've had little. I've learned to be content
Be
in all
content.
things.
That's right. And he was writing that in a prison.
Yes.
When he was in a
yes,
prison.
Yes.
Yep.
And so we think, trust me, there's no guarantee that everything works well and our plan
Yeah.
is, we're going to be the path to wealth forever. It could end in a minute.
Yeah.
But for now, we have faith and trusting that, you know what, we're going to be okay no matter what.
I would say anyone listening to the podcast or watching this, we didn't get you into here talking about real estate just to talk to you about Jesus. However,
That was not even talked about.
if it's not working for you now, right, then, why don't you check it out?
Yeah.
Why don't you check them out and really investigate them, right? So look at your life, and if life isn't working for you, why not?
Yeah.
Ask Jesus.
Yeah.
Talk to him,
And
right?
God is-
Find someone who knows him,
Yep.
and you probably know someone who does.
Or email us.
Right?
We'll talk to you.
Talk
we'll
to
get on
us.
The phone.
Yeah.
We'd love to tell you our story. By no means am I a biblical scholar, but I can tell you my story, right?
Yeah.
And how he just saved my life,
Yeah.
and made it much better.
If God's big enough to create the universe, he's big enough to handle whatever questions you have.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of like one of the things that we'll do Bible studies in our house, and every once in a while we'll start it off. And I'll say, if you can believe Genesis 1:1, the rest of the Bible's easy. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. If you
Yeah.
believe that, and most people do,
Yeah.
then why do you struggle with anything else?
Yeah.
So
And
God's big enough
James,
to handle all
James, I was just reading that, and it says a day is like 1,000 days for him.
1,000 years
And then
1,000 years.
1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day for him.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if he can do that, and that's all him, then we are to bring that to him, right? Any of our challenges, any of your problems, bring it to him. He's your Lord. He loves you,
Yeah.
no matter what you've done, no matter who you are. He loves you. He created you for a reason.
Yep.
And hopefully you'll find them and you'll have a life like that. Well, thank you for being on the podcast. We have
thank you,
gone
Kevin.
way over, like an hour and a half.
Sorry.
But,
All right, well,
but
they can edit it out.
But I
Sorry,
loved
Christian.
it. It was beautiful. It was a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin.
Thanks
Thank you
for
for all you do
inviting
for our
us.
clients. We appreciate
Thanks for
you.
what you do and giving me the opportunity to help them. That's a blessing.